I'm Deborah Lugo.
And I'm Stoyan Banov. And together, we are Nowadays Problem.
Well, not me, you.
Well, tonight we would like to talk about an exciting global disturbance.
You mean new President of the United States, Donald Trump?
That was rude. Well, exactly.
Well, don't you forget about the peaceful agreement that Colombia made.
And lastly, the democratic decision taken by the UK to leave the European Union.
First, we're gonna go with our partner, Jasmine Garza, who's currently in California in one of the riots resulting from the presidential elections of the United States in 2016.
Jasmine, are you with us?
Yeah, hello. Oh, hi there, Deborah and Stoyan. I'm right here in the state of California, where tensions remain high. The Clinton supporters have taken the streets of the United States by protesting her defeat in the presidential elections. By protest, we actually mean riots. After the second night of the presidential elections in the United States, the protests have involved so much arson and violence. Some of the footage that comes from these riots are disturbing, where people claim that in order to make a change, they actually need someone to die. In schools, riots have been increasing as well, where white guys have started to challenge the black guys and the Latino community. An incident of targeting black students has been reported to the government, where they are anonymously added to a chat group featuring racist slurs, threats, and photos depicting lynching.
According to Krahmann, the proliferation of private military and security companies has raised many questions, where there has been an increment in the United States of the acceptance of weapons. This indicates a transformation of international norm regarding the state of monopoly on the legitimate use of armed force. The great economic power that monopolies hold has also had consequences for the United States, which is leading the way towards a transformation of the international rules of the state, where the monopoly on violence is based on empirical examples of today's protests. It has allowed so many countries to tolerate, accept, or legalize the use of armed force in the international arena. Tensions have been increasing by these riots regarding the legitimacy and legality of the use of weapons that the state has previously offered to the civilians. Many people all around the world, and especially in the United States, have proposed an antitrust law to abolish and restrict these rights to keep and bear arms, believing that this will reduce the violence and restore the monopoly over the means of violence that the state has. Weber claims that the legitimate use of physical force by the state is needed to impose order over the citizens. This is seen as a characteristic that a state must have in disposition to keep the order and prosperity of a community.
For the Nowadays Problem, I'm Jasmine Garza reporting from LA. Back with you to the studio.
Hey Jasmine, now go build a wall.
Whoa, that was rude.
What? Can you believe it? This is all contradicting Weber when he talked about the monopoly over the use of violence that the state has. When these people come together to raise their arms and their voices so justice can be made.
Well, let me tell you, this is not new. It all started in 1875 when the right to keep and bear arms was included in the US Constitution, remember? Well, this is an example of how monopoly on violence is broken and spread towards the citizens, giving them the right to rebel whenever disagreements emerge.
Here's the fact that several states are coming together against a decision that America made on November 8th. I believe that violence is mimic and contagious. And I completely support Rene Girard.
Yes, definitely. Like states such as Portland, Dallas, New York, and even Atlanta. They all coming together in this decision making by America.
As these riots expand, will their voices be heard or will Donald Trump report them all?
That was even ruder. Now, moving to the south, in Colombia, with our guerrilla insight, Paulina Cruz.
Hola, parce, ¿nos escucha?
I'm not sure if over there in the studio you can hear me, because here all the people are making noise about the results and the national plebiscite about the peaceful treatment between the FARC and the government. It's very sad to see all these people with tears in their faces. As you might know, the last 26th of September, the President Juan Manuel Santos and the leader of the FARC signed a peaceful agreement, and today they left the decision to the Colombian population. International plebiscite that took place this morning. Today, the Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos said after voting, "We must end a 52-year war and open a way to peace, a peace that will us take us to a better future. The verdict was very clear with counting complete, and the no vote led this plebiscite by the 50.2% to a 49.8%. The no vote is not representative for all the Colombians, less than the 40% of Colombians. For many voters, the no represents not only the rejection of peace, but the rejection of the given terms by the peace. They want to see a harsher punishment to the FARCs because all the history they had. We don't know what it's going to happen to Colombia, but we hope the best for nowadays problems. Reporting from the state of Medellin, I'm Paulina Cruz. I'm back with you in the studio.
Violence has come to characterize the Colombian society since the onset of its ongoing armed conflict, with devastating consequences for the population, which has suffered decades of human rights abuse. According to Galjtung's violence triangle, where he made a distinction between the cultural, structural, and direct violence. All these ideas are connected to his distinction and, at the same time, complete each other. This theory constructs the violence expressed in society. Direct violence is backed up by the structural and cultural violence. Direct violence in Colombia is expressed as the unconformity of society towards the traditional methods, unjust social order and cultural behaviors to follow up. As a result, this movement emerged as an alternative power in benefit for the population, which alters the traditional methods of guerrilla at the structure of society that has ruled for many years, giving birth to the murders and abductions by the FARC to achieve their political goal, which is the alternation of this social order.
And last but not least, we have our lovely Valeria Barrales, who is currently at the London Bridge and will talk us more about the referendum and the current effects of the Brexit.
Go ahead, Valeria.
Hi guys, I'm in England with a special report about the Brexit. And for all those who don't know what I am talking about, the Brexit is the British exit from the European Union in an historical referendum. After the declaration of the result, the pound fell to its lowest level since 1985. On the day of Brexit, the Great Repeal Bill will come into force and end the supremacy of the European Union law over the Britain's own legislation. Also, David Cameron said the government will respect the result and carry out the instruction of the British people, restoring the 2.9 million European Union citizens in the UK that they will not be adversely affected.
Brennan said there is no reason to think even a tenth of the UK's population has a complete idea of the social science needed to evaluate Brexit. Most British voters, like most voters everywhere, are systematically ignorant of elementary political facts and theory and base their votes on incorrect ideas. Referendums are like you are either with them or against them. A democracy is not the same as majoritarian rule, except apparently during referendums when minority protection comes for anything. Maybe it will be worth risking all if a referendum truly solves a question.
That's all guys, we're back to the studio.
Well, Deborah, are you noticing what's happening? To what have led all these democratic anomalies around the world?
Citizens only think that democracy is the act of voting. This isolated and restricted view is erroneous. The practice of democracy is restricted to every 4 or 5 years in some countries like the UK. In the elections, or as Rose Bayon says it, the festival of democracy.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
The states bases their idea that we're all the same and believe that if the electoral democratic procedure was properly resolved and approved legally by the state, the results will be more fair.
Well, in ancient Greece, the birth of democracy was completely different. The citizen was permanently involved in the civic duties of society. He was actually part of the system, you know? And like every citizen was invited in this kind of assembly where the decision was helped in the ratification and approval of the laws and rules. Yeah, but unfortunately, 2,000 years later, society has not stressed in preparing citizens that promote and are willing to contribute to society, as many refuse to vote and they believe that their vote does not even count.
According to Samin 2013, how much should voters know depends on the democracy we would like to have. The state restricts the knowledge of civilians, offering them not enough information to take a proper decision for their own benefit of the state.
As an example, the United States government and media highlights the Democratic and Republican parties, leaving behind third parties. Third parties are not included in nominee selection, in political debates, and not even in the news. Or another example could be the referendums in Colombia and UK, where the options are only restricted to you're against us or with us, not allowing for negotiations for a different outcome. There are some scenarios where ignorance is beneficial to some political parties or even governments. According to Burke, 1774, the Burkean trustship model of representation gives a solution to the problem of uninformed participants who lack the knowledge to take an educated decision rather than evaluating the multiple options and exercise their own judgment in the decision-making process. Since ancient times, the political philosophers have debated the extent of knowledge voters need to make a democracy work. It was seen critical the fact that men were informed in order to take the proper decision that will affect the entire society. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm your star host, Deborah Lugo.
And I'm Stoyan Banov, and hope you guys liked it and enjoyed as much as we learned today.